The rain streaked down the iron gates of Willowmere Manor, a stately retirement estate nestled in the rolling hills of upstate New York, where the scent of damp earth mingled with whispers of forgotten stories on a bleak March evening in 2025. Inside, the grand parlor hummed with the soft clatter of teacups and the murmur of residents, widows, widowers, and retirees, swapping tales of yesteryear beneath crystal chandeliers. At the edge of the room sat Clara Monroe, a slight 62-year-old black woman with a crown of gray curls and a faded cardigan, her hands folded over a worn knitting bag. To the staff, she was just another resident, a quiet widow who'd arrived 6 months ago under her son-in-law's care. But as the storm rattled the windows, Clara's eyes gleamed with a fire no one suspected, a fire that would soon unravel a web of secrets, challenge the manor's polished facade, and ignite a battle for freedom that would leave everyone questioning who truly held the keys to this gilded cage. Clara's life had been a symphony of triumphs and trials. In the 1980s, she'd risen from a typist in Harlem to the founder of Monroe Media, a radio empire that gave voice to the unheard, jazz legends, civil rights activists, everyday dreamers. Her husky laugh and sharp wit made her a household name, her broadcasts a lifeline for a generation. She'd married late, lost her husband to cancer in 2005, and raised her daughter, Denise, alone. By 2015, her empire spanned stations nationwide, a testament to her grit. But 4 years ago, weary from decades of hustle, Clara had handed Monroe Media to Denise's husband, Paul Grayson, a smooth-talking executive she'd trusted like family. She'd retreated to a cabin in the Adirondacks, craving peace, until rumors drifted back. Staff layoffs, shady deals, a company drowning in debt. Rather than confront Paul outright, Clara chose a shadowed path. She faked a health scare, dizzy spells, memory lapses, and let Paul and Denise place her in Willowmere under a guardianship, posing as a frail widow to watch her legacy from within. She'd packed her knitting bag with a recorder, a notebook, and a resolve to uncover the truth. But what she found in Willowmere was more than a faltering business. It was a prison of her own making, and a mystery that would test her like never before. The manor was a paradox. Plush carpets and gourmet meals masked a suffocating order. Residents, mostly in their 80s and 90s, shuffled through routines, their eyes dim with resignation. Clara's room on the 3rd floor, dubbed the Memory Wing, was a beige cell with a bed, a chair, and a window she couldn't open. "For your safety," the staff chirped, but the locked doors and constant supervision told another story. She ate alone, avoiding the dining hall's sea of wheelchairs and trembling hands. "Too depressing," she'd mutter, scribbling notes about overheard whispers, staff grumbling about unpaid wages, residents lamenting lost freedoms. Paul visited weekly, his polished shoes clicking on the tile, his smile too wide. "You're doing great, Mom," he'd say, patting her hand. "This place is top-notch. $20,000 a month. Best care around." Clara played along, nodding meekly, but her recorder caught his offhand boasts. The company's fine. New investors. Big plans. Yet her old radio contacts, reached through smuggled calls, painted a grim picture. Monroe Media bled money, its station sold off, its mission gutted. Paul's lies stoked her anger, but the manor's walls tightened around her. She'd asked for a phone. "Lost mine," she'd fib, but Paul waved it off. "You don't need that here, Mom. We've got you covered." Then came Victor Langston, Willowmere's director, a wiry man with a hawkish nose and a habit of lurking. He'd stop by her room, his voice oily. "Settling in, Mrs. Monroe? Need anything?" Clara'd smile thinly, but his eyes lingered too long, his questions too pointed. One night, as she feigned sleep, she caught him rifling her bag, searching, she guessed, for signs she wasn't as frail as claimed. Her heart raced, but she stayed still, the recorder hidden in her pillowcase humming silently. Victor's presence wasn't just oversight, it was a threat, and Clara sensed he knew more than he let on. Weeks turned to months, and Clara's isolation gnawed at her. She'd pace her room, whispering into her recorder. 6 months in this cage, barely seen the sun. Went out once for a doctor, once for a haircut. That's it. The Manor's rules were ironclad. No visitors without approval, no calls out unless supervised. She'd charm a nurse, Ella, into lending her a phone, just to hear my grandson's voice, and piece together more. Paul had siphoned funds into offshore accounts. Victor was his silent partner, and Willowmere itself was a front, skimming fees from residents to line their pockets. The evidence piled up, but so did the walls. Her every move watched, her pleas for freedom ignored. The breaking point came on a stormy night, March 10th, 2025. Clara stood at her window, rain blurring the world beyond, when she saw a figure below, a gray-haired man with a camera peering up. She didn't know him, but instinct screamed opportunity. She scrawled, "Help, Clara," on a napkin, weighted it with a spoon, and dropped it through a crack she'd pried open. It fluttered down and the man snatched it, his lens trained on her. She pressed her hand to the glass, mouthing, "Get me out," her breath fogging the pain. He nodded, vanishing into the dark, and Clara's pulse thrummed. Had she lit a spark or a fuse? The next morning, the Manor buzzed with unease. Victor stormed in, his face tight. "What's this about a note, Clara? You causing trouble?" She shrugged, eyes wide. "Just dropped some trash. Wind took it." He glared, unconvinced, but left. Hours later, sirens wailed outside. 2 officers and a paramedic entered her room, their voices calm but firm. "Ma'am, we're taking you for an evaluation. Someone's worried about you." Clara's heart leapt. She'd been heard. As they wheeled her out, Paul burst in, flustered. "What's going on? She's fine here." "She's not," an officer snapped, eyeing him. "We'll see what the doctors say." At the hospital, a psychiatrist, Dr. Ellis, met her, a kind-eyed woman in her 50s. Clara spilled everything. Her disguise, the recorder, the corruption. "I'm not sick. I'm trapped," she said, voice steady despite tears. Dr. Ellis listened, tested her, memory sharp, logic intact. "You're not incapacitated," she concluded, scribbling notes. "This guardianship's a sham." Clara handed over her recordings, her notebook, proof of Paul and Victor's crimes. "Get this to the police," she urged, "and my daughter. She needs to know." The fallout was swift. By evening, news vans swarmed Willowmere. Headlines blared, "Radio mogul exposes fraud from inside retirement home." Paul was arrested, his accounts frozen. Victor vanished, a warrant out. Denise arrived at the hospital, tears streaming. "Mom, I didn't know. He fooled me, too." Clara hugged her, the weight of months lifting. "We'll fix this together," she said, voice firm. Weeks later, Willowmere stood half empty, its secrets aired. Clara moved back to her cabin, but not before reclaiming Monroe Media. She hired new staff, revived old shows, her voice crackling over the airwaves once more. "This is Clara Monroe," she'd begin, "back where I belong." Residents who'd ignored her sent letters, apologies, admiration. One, from Ella, read, "You showed us we're not invisible." Clara framed it by her fireplace, a reminder of her fight. Paul faced trial, his charm no match for evidence. Victor surfaced in Canada, extradited soon after. The Manor's owners paid fines, its memory wing shuddered. Clara's story spread, a tale of a woman who'd turned captivity into a crusade. One night, as snow dusted the pines, Denise joined her by the fire. "You scared me, Mom, going undercover like that." Clara chuckled, stoking the flames. "Had to, baby. Some truths you can't see from the outside." Denise squeezed her hand. "What now?" "Now?" Clara's eyes twinkled. "We rebuild, and I'm never letting anyone lock me away again." The fire roared, a beacon in the dark, and Clara knew she'd won. Not just her freedom, but a legacy reborn from the ashes of a system that had failed her. One whisper broke the bars. This tale proves that resilience outshines any cage. If Clara's fight moved you, drop a like to let us know. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories that echo strength. What would you defy to reclaim your voice? Share your courage in the comments below. We're all ears. Until next time, hold this close. True freedom rings louder than silence,